How do you kind of think about the relationship with failure and failing forward?
Oh boy, that's something that's absolutely. I mean, I agree with that context that um, you're going to fail probably many more times. It seems like than the successes we have in life. But I think that's where we grow, right? I think we know that's where you fall, you get up, and you learn, and you try not to make the same. If it was a mistake, you try not to do that over again. You can choose to quit and give up, or get back up and continue to move forward and battle through it. And if you have that mindset, I guess in a very humble way, I'm a living testament that that does happen. The successes will overshadow those failures for sure, but you got to keep grinding and moving forward. The true, judge of a person, of an individual. I think that there's been books written on this. Is truly not, what your net worth is, how big your house is, or what kind of vehicle you drive. It's your character, and it's how you treat others, right? And so those are the values that integrity. Those are the values that I was taught from a very young age, starting with my grandfather and my dad, and so it's very important for me to pass that on to anyone that I interact with, and especially my current role, and especially my own kids, obviously at home. So something I try to live by on a daily basis.
All right, guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of the Hart Hustle podcast. Now, I have an incredible leader across from me here today. Now, we're going to be talking about how the inspirations and experiences that we have at a young age can take us down a path to impact more generations than we could really anticipate. I've got an amazing individual across this little digital table with me. And our first question is, when you were a kid, you participated in some community service events or activities, and that led you to be the CEO of this amazing organization. Mr. Lopez, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Keenan. I appreciate that. Appreciate the kind words. And I feel very fortunate to, at this point in my career, after almost 30 years of being in the private sector, to end up in the not-for-profit world in the role that I'm in an organization that, as you said, yes, I was part of when I was a young boy, for sure. Well, for me, first of all, the idea of crossing over from, like I said, more of a private sector environment my whole career, into this different career path, was easier for me. The transition was easier because, quite honestly, I could relate to a lot of the challenges that many of our clients, our families have gone through, and in particular, a lot of the youth. I grew up in a immigrant family, first generation American. I am, and so we were Spanish dominant at our house, and we work with the large Latino population here in Kansas City.
So when I think about the way in which the organization got its start, I think it's really important that we talk about the origin story of creating a, at-risk youth program and what you guys have evolved into since then. So why don't you kind of take us down memory lane?
Sure. To give people a glimpse of what Guadalupe is and what we stand for. It is our claim to fame is we truly are. This is on the historic archives. The longest, ongoing, oldest Latino-focused organization in the country. Obviously, perhaps down in the southwest part of the country, on the West Coast, maybe even on the East Coast, there's probably some Latino-focused organizations such as ours, but for whatever reason, they did not survive the course of time. Ours has for over 105 years. And some of the basic mission and core values that existed 105 years ago, we still live today and implement today with our families. But approximately 30 years ago, leadership had good foresight around here, both volunteer board members and whoever was here running the organization, realized that there was a large dropout rate within the public school system in Kansas City, which is no different across the country. then and now among the Latino population. And they started with an at-risk dropout school with one instructor, 10 kids, and to what it's evolved to be now is a really neat story. We're the largest now charter school system, pre-K through high school in Kansas City, the largest charter school in the state of Missouri. And it's come a long ways now. Not only are we college or career ready, where kids are either graduating, going off to college, or get a job, a decent paying job, and become good, productive citizens in society, right? Earning an honest living.
They say that our careers often don't look like a ladder, but rather a spiral staircase that takes us through many different experiences and then leads us to where we're at. You mentioned a little bit about you being, in the private sector and now doing different types of work. What do you think have been the biggest, I would say, lessons learned that you gathered from your private sector time that have helped you be such a successful CEO here?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I feel very fortunate that, what I always tell younger individuals, young ladies, young men that are trying to figure out what they want to do down the road in life. And I tell them to associate themselves with good mentors, number one, and a good set of friends to help guide you, not knowing exactly what you want to do, but having those kind of people around you is very helpful. For me, I had good mentors and picked a path career-wise that involved the world of commercial real estate, both from a leasing and brokerage point of view, and also, education-wise, going back to get a master's in business that focused on finance. I was fortunate to be able to leverage that background and have a successful career in that area of commercial lending and commercial real estate brokerage. And those experiences that I had, like I said, most of my professional career, without a doubt, have had a very positive impact in my current role as CEO of this not-for-profit here in Kansas City.
Do you ever get time to reflect on the journey that brought you to where you're at here today? Because when we're a CEO and, we're leading a nonprofit, it can often be tough to have the time to slow down and appreciate that journey.
Yeah, that's something that I'm very. It actually humbles me because, the true, judge of a person, of an individual. I think that there's been books written on this. Is truly not, what your net worth is, how big your house is, or what kind of vehicle you drive. It's your character, and it's how you treat others, right? And so those are the values that integrity. Those are the values that I was taught from a very young age, starting with my grandfather and my dad, and so it's very important for me to pass that on to anyone that I interact with, and especially my current role, and especially my own kids, obviously at home. So something I try to live by on a daily basis.
My father always told me it's more important about how people talk about you when you are not in the room than when you are.
Yeah, that's a pretty accurate statement. And that way, you should never have to worry about that, right? When you always tell the truth, that you can defend and just answer questions about down the road whenever you tell the truth. And that's part of integrity.
One of the things I think is really important for us to hit home on here is not only have you guys grown the organization, but you guys have taken a very intentional strategic initiative to, I would say, expand economic growth within the community. And so not only are you making sure that we have students, right, who are coming out ready to take on life, but you're also talking about hiring opportunities to support the whole family. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I think people that might be listening or watching this podcast, there are many, I say that here locally, but I'm 100% positive across the country. There are many very, very well-run and good-intentioned non-for-profits that do amazing work across the country, helping individuals, helping humans from a lot of different perspectives. And I'm pretty proud that here with ours, our focus is to improve, whether it's our school system or any of the social service wraparound programs that we offer. It's to improve the whole family, the whole situation. If we have parents that have children in our schools, especially during COVID, that became more magnified. I say this on a regular basis to a lot of our supporters. Boy, we really had to react quickly. And I think that made us better, and stronger for who we are now. And in the sense that, a lot of the families that have children in our schools, the adults, many of those individuals worked in the hospitality industry. And we know that COVID, hospitality, restaurants, hotels, that industry was impacted tremendously. And so, yeah, a lot of those parents would come to us, and not only for food pantry assistance or utility assistance, but how about to get retrained to continue to support their families with a job that continues to give them dignity and hope and provide the best environment for their children. So we're very proud about that. And so our workforce development program is something that we take very serious. That has been part of the mission and a big service that we've provided for many, many years here at Guadalupe Centers.
Man, it's got to feel amazing to not only lift up, the people in your near circle, but the entire community around you. You'd mentioned that, there's been a lot of gentrification and other things that have happened in Kansas City over the years. And you use the example of organizations like McDonald's as an example, looking at demographic data and building to where people are going. I believe I use the analogy of going to where the puck is moving, right?
Yeah.
Why is that something that's so strategic? And now having everybody understand a little bit about your, commercial real estate background, why is that something that's important for the long-term success of the Guadalupe Centers?
That's another great point. Absolutely. It's been very critical for us and how we try to be more strategic about meeting the needs, right? That's really what we're doing, is meeting the needs of society. In this case, in this community, Kansas City. And yes, it's no different. What happens in corporations like the ones you mentioned, especially McDonald's and some of the national C-stores, gas stations, that's what they look for is demographic shifts and trends in population. And there's a larger number of population, and they go there because there's a potential for market, right? For an opportunity for revenue. In our case, our schools kind of dictated where we physically grow. And yes, with gentrification that happens in many urban areas, our original neighborhood where this organization started, we noticed that about 20 years ago, actually, that gentrification started happening. And many of the newer immigrants or people that would move into Kansas City could not afford to live in our original, for lack of a better word, trade area or service area. So they were coming from other parts of Kansas City. We considered more East Kansas City, which are non-traditional Latino neighborhoods. And we quickly, again, there was good foresight. I give my predecessors credit. There were opportunities for us to acquire properties that of which we can provide our services and grow our schools into. And so now our organization is not what originally was more neighborhood based. Now we are across an entire geographic area that makes up Kansas City proper. And we service a lot of people in a large territory, for sure.
And you guys have the momentum of winning a couple Super Bowls behind you. So I'm sure the community morale is awesome for you guys. And I only say that as being a disheveled Las Vegas Raiders fan, but that's for another conversation.
I tell you what, anybody that grew up in my generation, there was a lot of pain we went through too, with some pretty bad teams that they put on the field. So we're going to live this ride, take this high ride for a while, as long as we can. And yeah, it's kind of cool. And was fortunate to go to the local football team, the Chiefs home opener, and where they were victorious. And I guess they're off to a good start for this maybe three-peat situation.
I'm putting a whole bunch of positive energy towards you, but I hope at some point in time it comes back for one of my teams, man. I grew up in Detroit as well. I was there. We went 0-16. So
yeah, I was pulling for you guys. You all won your home opener too, so that's good stuff.
We did. I got the text messages from everybody. First time in years we've won an opener, so we're off to a good start with you guys.
In the Chiefs home opener, so.
Yeah, very true, very true. Maybe we're just so used to those losses that those wins just continue to erase themselves.
Well, Detroit and Kansas City had that in common for sure.
Yeah. One of the things that I talk about on the podcast often is unique to nonprofit CEOs. Burnout is a huge challenge that we often face. Now, one of the reasons why I've experienced burnout in my personal life is I have the challenge of the moving finish line. As soon as I start looking up towards my next thing, I'm always looking for something bigger. And there's a great saying that says goals are a destination, a finish line, or even an event. But when we get them wrong, they're a horizon. Knowing that you guys have to continue to do so much to meet the needs of the community, how are you making sure that the goals and things that you guys accomplish don't turn into the horizon, so when you take a step forward, it moves one step away?
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. I mean, I think that's a challenge in the private sector and no different in the not-for-profit world. And definitely a little bit more challenging not-for-profit because you have limited resources. And at the end of the day, it's something that I learned along the way, kind of best practices that any organization, if you want to be successful, you're only as good as your team. And you have to continue to invest in your team, give positive reinforcement and training. And unfortunately, even with salaries and benefits, that's a big challenge for the not-for-profit world. But in order to recruit and retain a good workforce, you really have to focus on developing the workforce and making them feel, needed and appreciated. And that's a really big thing for us here. And there's been a lot of thought and strategy put into that. And we've been very fortunate. We have supportive volunteer board of directors that support this idea. And so that allows us to execute our vision and our mission and core values, more effectively, for sure.
I'm interested, in our previous conversation, you talked about the character trait of being humble, and you described yourself as being humble. And I would completely agree. For all that you've accomplished, being a leader of an amazing organization, it's easy for us not to put the light on ourselves. I cannot say the same about younger generations who are often looking for, quick acknowledgement, quick results, that transactional mindset when it comes to the things that we want to accomplish. When I think about your role, a saying comes to mind, and I'm not sure if you resonate with this, is you've already accomplished things that you said would make you happy. With the growth of the organization and everything else, how are you keeping the younger generation of people who are coming into the organization grounded in the idea of the impact that they've already created is enough, rather than always looking for more?
Yeah. Well, I have a little bit of an advantage in my own house. I have some young adult daughters that are making their way to get their careers started, and that's kind of my lab. That's where I've learned a lot about the newer generation and what makes them, tick and motivates them. And it's helped me to become a better manager, I guess, and leader within my work environment here. Just understanding that every generation is a little different. Their motivations are a little different. But at the same time, it's kind of it's kind of like tough love kind of an approach. At a certain point, they have to realize that at the end of the day, you have to earn your keep, and you can't demand respect. You have to earn it. And the best way that I do it is by teaching, teaching by example. I don't ask anyone on my team at any level to do something that I wouldn't do, and I really mean that sincerely. I try to lead by example. Sometimes it's tough. There's situations where, it could be a financial situation or just someone doesn't fit the certain role that we have. And I put myself in that same situation. If I'm not qualified or capable of accomplishing a certain role with a position that we have in any part of our organization, then we have to be honest with ourselves and with those individuals. And I kind of put myself in those situations, when that happens. And, but yeah, I mean, just have to treat people with respect. And, I think being humble to me, you'll never have to defend, always telling the truth and integrity and not patting yourself on the back all the time. But just by the way you live yourself.
Comes back to that character trait that we were talking about a little bit earlier, right? There's so many things that I think is unique to leadership today. I talk to so many different CEOs and leaders on the podcast, and we often talk about the skill set of being a leader. is different than the skill set at being very good at a specific task like sales or marketing or ops, and then being elevated to the role of a leader. How have you become such a well-rounded leader in your journey? Were you, like you said, you had mentors, which is great, but did you ever get really tactical and intentional about becoming a better leader?
Yeah, I mean, I think what the old saying is, you never stop learning, right? I think you have to continue to always seek, uh, as many resources as possible and grow. We can all learn something new every day, right? Whether it's reading a new management book, a leadership book. Again, continue to surround yourself with the right individuals inside workplace and outside your workplace. And to me, those are very critical. But yeah, it's just society continues to evolve, and we as individuals have to continue to evolve. And I just think the world keeps changing, and if we don't realize, that we have to perhaps be flexible and open minded to, with things that are thrown at you. Um, it happens in every generation, and as a leader, as a manager, if you don't identify, that, then it's going to be a tough road. And the new workforce continues to evolve and change, and you have to be flexible at the end of the day. And that's what we continue to do around here. And but at the same time, continue to improve yourself and sharpen the blade, right? That's an old management tool that we've used for years. But whether you're current generation or an older one, I think we all have to be open minded to that.
I'm thinking about the rapid changing expectations for work in our lives. Now, when I speak to more seasoned leaders like yourself, you guys came from a time where doing the work, putting in the time was something that was highly prioritized, and it gave us great returns. The new generation seems to have a different idea about work-life balance, about, using the job that they do as a way to help them live their life rather than life itself, right? Instead of working to live, they're living to work, or the vice versa. How do we meet this new generation with the expectations for work-life balance when you're serving the community and you have to show up and continue to do right by the people who came before you?
Yeah, there's no real answer to that question or that scenario. It's a challenge. It's a daily challenge, and I think when you reach this part of your career, such as myself, and you just have to learn. Like I said earlier, you have to learn to recognize, that this current generation has different expectations and have grown up different than my generation did. And you're right. Back then, it was goal driven. Everyone was supposed to build a career, buy a house, have nice things, save for retirement. There's been so many things happen in the world the last 10 years. The big one being COVID, specifically, that I think changed that paradigm, that way of thinking, and it was game changer. So whatever was normal pre-COVID, those norms have changed. And after COVID, I think for me as well, specifically as I interact with the younger generation, I've had to recognize that and realize that and adjust my style. But to your point, at the end of the day, we're not selling widgets. We're affecting human lives every day. And at the end of the day, when we hire someone or consider hiring somebody, or even put a job description together, to us, we do personality profile questionnaires and surveys. And at the end of the day, if you don't believe in the core values of this organization, it's more than likely you will not be hired. And that's not intended to be crude or a mean kind of perspective, but more so, yeah. I mean, core values and the mission of whatever organization you're part of. New hires need to really believe that. And our core values and our mission is to help people. And so right off the bat, if you don't fit that criteria, then it's probably not a good place for you.
Makes a lot of sense. And that was going to be my question for you. I had the privilege of speaking to an awesome people and culture leader from a healthcare system in Eastern Kentucky. And he posed the question, which was really interesting to me. He said, Keenan, just because we have a shortage of team members does not mean that everybody is a good fit here. And so when I think about hiring, they have to be a good fit for culture, because sometimes when we make those short-sighted decisions of hiring somebody just to fill a seat, the cause of them not being a good fit has consequences across the organization that is really hard to quantify. How do you kind of think about that?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that statement. You know, again, whether you're in a not-for-profit environment or corporate environment, and any work-life environment, I think if people don't fit your mission and your core values, they will struggle, and it'll be frustrating in being in management to keep them around. And it won't be productive if you're in a corporate environment. It'll affect your bottom line, and it's expensive to hire. When you hire people that don't work out, that's a very expensive proposition. Organizations put a lot of resources into new hires, and somebody doesn't work out. I think that's why we're being, more strategic and intentional about kind of our hiring process. And I think you're seeing that more in mainstream, business and not-for-profit environments.
There's I want to kind of segue into how you've been able to build this life of success and fulfillment while at the same time balancing the need to show up and work as hard as you possibly can. So I want to kind of put a frame around this. I'm in my young 30s now, and I find myself constantly battling with the idea of I want to accumulate more, I want to do more, I want to provide more value for my partners so I can provide a life for my family and for the people who I choose to start relationships with. But often I kind of have a tough time balancing the integration of me pursuing this life that I want to build while also maintaining healthy relationships with my friends and with my partner and everything else like that. And I find myself often asking the question, am I building a life for the people in my life that they never asked for? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it's, I think at the end of the day, I think you have to do what's right for you and your family, first and foremost. A lot of times, whether you're closer to your age range or I'm a few years older than you, it doesn't matter, or even older than I am. Sometimes we think we have things figured out. And I can tell you from my experience, even here the last 10 years, we may have something planned out. Things don't always happen exactly like we think they're going to happen. And I think you have to go through life just, again, you have to stick to the fundamentals. Is it right for you and your family? That's kind of what leads me and motivates me every day, whether I was, again, in my previous corporate environment, life or career, or now. And that should be, in my opinion, kind of what just is your initial, igniter of whatever you end up doing in life. And again, you think you have things figured out. I sincerely never thought that I would end up in the not-for-profit world and in the current role that I'm in now. But I look back now, and it was definitely a stair step, and everything that I did along my journey definitely had something to do with where I'm at today now. And I feel very fortunate. And the idea is you always got to be open to learning and new ideas, and keeping a work-life balance, a work and personal life balance. To me, that's how I've been able to keep things going for myself.
Do you have a tough time with the skill set of delegation?
No, I kind of like delegating. And a true fun story is that people around here probably are tired of me saying this often, but I'm very proud that I coach girls fast pitch softball, competitive softball, travel ball for about 12 years, starting with my own daughters. And I coach several young ladies, some that have gone on to play Division I high level softball, which makes me so proud. not that.
Don't shy away from that moment. Tell us where you got that starting pitcher today, man. Don't come on.
Yeah, no, out of courtesy and respect for confidentiality, I won't mention names, but I do have a young lady that plays in one of the top programs across the country right now that most people will probably see in the College World Series this next season. But no, my own daughter got to play college softball, and for me, what I would tell the girls, they were girls, not young ladies at the time, they're more worried about the competitors, and especially when we traveled across the country, like, oh my, that's that club or that organization, they're amazing. And what I told them then, and what I tell my staff now, pretty educated and intelligent people, grown-ups today, and it probably drives them nuts, is that you can't worry about the competition, and you can't control the competition. You control what you can control, and and we're good at many things around here, and we need to stay focused on doing these things right, continue to do them right, and get better. And whatever the other group does, I mean, that's up to them. And we'll continue to grow and get better if we just focus on ourselves. And so I take that mantra or that philosophy that I used with 12 and under girls softball players, and use it with adults nowadays that involve big, strong men too, not just women. And I think it works. I think when you put it in that perspective, it works.
Everybody who grew up like myself, living on the diamond or in between the chalk, understands that, especially in softball and the MLB as an example, to get to the Hall of Fame, you fail 7 out of 10 times. Being a 300 hitter is world renowned. How do you kind of think about the relationship with failure and failing forward?
Oh boy, that's something that's absolutely. I mean, I agree with that context that you're going to fail probably many more times, it seems like, than the successes we have in life. But I think that's where we grow, right? I think we know that's where you fall, you get up, and you learn, and you try not to make the same. If it was a mistake, you try not to do that over again. And yeah, I always tell my own. I have 3 daughters. I always tell them, I guess you have 2 choices. You can choose to quit and give up, or get back up and continue to move forward and battle through it. I grew up in a family that was very supportive, and was told we got to keep moving forward. And if you have that mindset, I guess in a very humble way, I'm a living testament that um, that does happen. You will have more. The successes will overshadow those failures for sure, but you got to keep grinding and moving forward.
There's a sense of personal accountability there. I think in our previous conversation, I talked about one of the biggest realizations I've had as I've gotten into my late 20s and early 30s is the responsibility to continue trying to be the best version of myself, because the men and women who came before me in my family lineage didn't have the opportunities that I have. My great-grandfather was a sharecropper in Arkansas. My grandfather was born in the 1930s and was discriminated against for the color of his skin. My father was the first entrepreneur. And now I have the ability to sit across the table from great leaders like you. And so I have to make the most of these moments. Do you kind of ever find yourself reflecting on that responsibility to continue to push your lineage forward and set a precedence for your daughters as well?
Oh, no doubt, without a doubt. That's a big motivator for me. Has been my whole life, and absolutely, my wife and I are first generation college graduates, and that in and of itself doesn't guarantee anything. Our daughters have grown up with many more resources and opportunities than my wife and I ever did, and it's always been important for us to acknowledge that and have our own daughters, but any young person that we interact with, have them understand that you definitely have to work hard for everything you earn or you have, and definitely learn from your predecessors, your ancestors. My grandfather was an immigrant as well. My father actually was an immigrant, technically born in Mexico, and they taught us to persevere, work hard, never give up, uh, work for what you want, and that's what's helped us to continue to be successful in our careers for my wife and I, and we've passed that on to our own daughters, and never take anything for granted. Learn from the past. No excuses. You got to work. You got to earn it. So, no doubt.
100+ years as an organization, an amazing accomplishment. Now, one of the things I recognize is what got you guys here is not going to get you to year 200, as an example. How are you thinking about the idea of experimentation to continue to meet the needs of the community? I was talking to an amazing leader yesterday who was talking about the difference between encouraging his team to make decisions and encouraging his team to take experiments on are two very different things. Experiments mean we're going to try this out and see what happens. Decisions seem like they come with more weight. What do you think about the difference there?
Yeah, no, I think we talked about that the last time you and I connected. That when I came on board into my role, one of the things that I shared with the search committee that ended up hiring me, as well as their consultant, after a national search, was that, with me, you weren't going to get a traditional type not-for-profit person that would sit around and write proposals to request grants and funding. For me, it was important to try different things. We will never deviate from our mission and our core values, but the way you execute and you implement them can be different. And we were never going to deviate and just try new things just to try them. We were going to enhance existing programs and services that we've provided for years and simply enhance them. And what we're doing is adding more entrepreneurial perspectives to generate revenue. We, for example, produce 500,000 meals every year to feed our own schools, our own students, our own adult senior programs. And then we picked up 30 third-party contracts with other schools and other senior programs across the Kansas City area. And that's one way that we generate revenue. We have our own custodial department in-house that first and foremost services our own properties and our own buildings at the highest level of quality. And that's being used we're being used as third-party contractors as well for other corporate and not-for-profits. So we are doing things that we're not reinventing anything or starting anything fresh. We're just enhancing existing services and programs that we've offered for many years. And I think you have to be creative nowadays. After COVID, COVID taught all of us that, whether you're in the not-for-profit world or in a corporate environment. If you don't reinvent yourself and try new things, new approaches, you're probably not going to have as much success. And if the need is still there for us, impacting humans, we're going to try everything we can to meet that need.
One thing I recognize is leaders like yourself have to constantly think out of the box. We have to be creative and curious, so like everything we've talked about here. And the custodial services and the catering services are an amazing way to continue to drive revenue, but also serve your own, which I feel like is beautiful. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. How are you thinking about things like artificial intelligence and all this other technology buzz that's out here? Are those things that you're thinking about that can help you fulfill the mission and create efficiencies?
Well, I'm a wannabe techie. I wouldn't consider myself very technological advanced or creative, but I'm realistic. I know that that's here. AI is not going anywhere in every aspect of society, in any sector, and so it's something that we have to be very open-minded to and proceed with caution. I know it's not all completely refined at this point. But I don't think it's going backwards. They're not going to take that off the table. And so, yeah, you have to be prepared for that. And in the not-for-profit world, I know it's being used somewhat, but probably not. It's probably heading down a path where, like in any other sector, it's probably going to be a key part of how we operate and conduct business, for sure.
Yeah, I just don't know how we're going to be able to ignore these gigantic moves of technology. I had a great guest on the podcast. His name was Chris Gillett, and he used the example of technology increases at an exponential rate, but society does not exponentially increase at the same time. So we almost get like these rubber band moments where we get shot forward so quickly. And I think it's just really important for us to keep our toes to the ground and look at what other people are doing and let people set examples and then try and, build upon that momentum to be able to meet people where they are. because distribution of information about services, referrals, what you guys do in the community, like that's the role that that service and that technology plays instead of a replacement, because we can never replace the human element.
No, absolutely not. I tell people that, especially younger staff that work in our organization, when I first got started in sales in commercial real estate, I think I had 5 pieces of equipment that now you find in one device, your smartphone. When I was out there doing real estate brokerage, the pager, a giant phone bag, and I had a voice recorder because I was in real estate. I had to remind myself what I did and where I went that certain day. So yeah, the world, you better be ready for technology for sure, because it's going to keep evolving. And so God knows what we'll probably have a phone chipped in our hand down the road or something. I don't know.
We're moving in that direction, man. There's some really interesting stories about Elon's company that's putting microchips in people's heads that are helping them, from a disabilities perspective, just be able to interact with the world around them, which I think is amazing. Neuralink is the name of that company. But that stuff is coming. We've got very influential people pushing that stuff down the road.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful time. I want to give you an opportunity to cast a vision for the future, Mr. Lopez. When we think about where we're going to be in the next 5 years underneath your helm and the continued progress and implementation and everything you guys are doing in the community, what are we thinking? What's the vision look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think as we've stated in this conversation, society is going to continue to evolve, and that's the real question. Are we going to be prepared for that? And are we going to be open-minded enough for these changes? Previous generations probably went through the same line of questions, the different decades, here the last 100 years probably, during all the industrial revolution and technology revolution and all that. It's going to continue to evolve. And so the question is, as individuals, as managers, as leaders, are you willing to do so? And if not, it's going to be a tough road. And so here within our environment, we're going to continue to meet the needs of the community. Excuse me, that's something flying around my eye. And we'll keep evolving, trying creative ways to provide more resources for the clients that we serve, the humans that we serve every day. I think education will continue to be something that we'll focus on. I'll correct myself. I said we're the largest charter school in Missouri. We're the largest charter school pre-K through high school in Kansas City, but I envision Guadalupe Centers being the largest charter school in the state of Missouri. And so I think we're positioning ourselves with the right structure and being strategic. That in right now this December we'll probably be close to about a $50 million revenue organization. We'll probably double that in the next 5 years. And that's not just growth for growth's sake. That's growth to meet the needs of humans and society, so that they can be functional and be a positive impact, have a positive impact in this local community, and hopefully and move on to other parts of the country to be positive, have a positive impact. But we're going to evolve, and let's get AI going. We're ready.
As part of our tradition here, we like to end our episodes with a question from another guest. Now, this is a leader from a CEO from a organization in Oklahoma. And he wants to ask the question, when you think of DEI, do you think of people with disabilities like autism or ADHD or any type of invisible disabilities that they might have, not just people with physical ailments or disabilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, that has not been part of the discussion, people with disabilities or other challenges. But I do believe that should be part of the discussion. DEI should not just be, race or color of your skin, socioeconomic. There are people that have many different challenges and disadvantages. And I think as leaders, especially in the areas that we serve in the not-for-profit world, or anybody in any industry, in any sector, need to be open-minded to that. Absolutely.
Well, For everybody who's been tuning in today, this has been another amazing episode of the Hart and Hustle podcast with my amazing guest who's sitting across this table from me, leading an amazing organization and having such a huge impact in not only the generations that are here right now, but the future as well. So, Mr. Lopez, I just want to say thanks for coming on the show, man. A huge honor to be able to do this with you.
Keenan, thank you for your interest and for wanting to listen to my story and our organization's story, and happy to do so. And I applaud you for your efforts and what you're doing in across the country. And so I appreciate you as well. Thank you.